There we go.
Hi, Emily.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Sorry
Oh,
about
okay.
that.
I gotta. Oh, Lisa just sent me a message. Said check your email. Okay.
Yes, sorry, that was my fault. I sent an updated link, so
Okay. Yeah, the other one.
the other one was not right, but now we're here.
Okay. I'm gonna try to log on from a different device so I can see.
And we are live streaming, and we have one participant in the waiting room.
Oh, hey, Dr. Hooker.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
All right, we've got 4 in the waiting room. Miss Gallagher, you let me know when you're ready for me to let them in.
I'm sending Tawana the new link. She didn't get it yet. I think she's also driving, so I'm gonna send it to
Okay.
her now.
Thanks. Hello, Dr. Maddox. Can you hear us? Dr. Maddox, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got 6 folks in the waiting room, and if you are ready, I will go ahead and admit them and then turn it over to you all.
Well, I guess Karina, I didn't know we were facilitating. I'm sorry. Karina, lead it.
Karina just logged off.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna let him in, Dr. Maddox.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. So we're still coming in. Thank you all for coming today to our board advisory meeting. I'm looking forward to hearing from you about your experiences, some of your questions. This is my first board advisory meeting, and so I'm excited to hear what you all have been experiencing, either if you're a teacher in your classrooms or if you're a parent. And so I know on our agenda, one of the things that we are going to talk about is communication. And so it's wide open. We'll start with your thoughts, and then we will, Karina and I will chime in. So I'll go ahead and let you all start.
Is there anything specifically about communication? Oh, Megan McNeely, Clark Central High School teacher.
Okay.
Good
Well,
morning, or wait, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know when it is.
Good afternoon. Well, in terms of communication from the district, from the board over the past year, what are some of your thoughts in terms of how we've improved, or if you feel that we haven't improved and there are things that you suggest that we still could do better? I would love to hear some of those thoughts.
I'll go ahead and pipe up. There was so far, I mean, I feel like I've been very well informed. Sometimes there's almost too much in my inbox, but
Okay.
of course, I'm coming at it from the teacher's perspective. And I do know that there was an incident a few weeks ago. We had a lockdown of some sort. I'm trying to remember the situation. I apologize. I'm like, but something went out, and while we were in the situation, parents got an email before the teachers or anything. And actually, we only found that out because I think security may have done it. I don't know. I apologize that I'm being so wishy-washy, but I did hear, we discussed it in department chair meetings, and we discussed it in my team meeting, that one of the teachers had a student actually say, hey, my mom just texted me. She knows we're in, like I said, I think it was a lockdown. We're in a lockdown.
Okay.
And so we didn't even know we were having one, and we certainly didn't know that information had gone out. And while we were still in holding, the parents were notified and were coming out to the kids. And that was, it just felt a little, we were caught back on our heels, and it just didn't feel good. So, and then the situation kind of got a little bit messier in that room because the child knew and was saying things to other children. So it just got a little chaotic, is what I understand.
Oh, wow. Well, I can understand the frustration with that. And before we go forward, I'm sorry, Dr. Hooker. I didn't share that, we have Dr. Hooker, our superintendent, and also in our meeting today. And I welcome you. I apologize for that oversight. Yeah, I understand how that can be frustrating. I know that, through the course of the year, we've really, tried to work on our communication and the steps of our communication so that, especially children wouldn't get information before, the faculty and misinformation get out into the schools. And I am noting, that, that concern.
What,
Thank you.
One piece I'll just kind of build on that specific, not that specific incident, although I am a Clark Central parent, by the way, Rachel Irwin. I have a 9th grader at Clark Central. I'm on the LSGT for Clark Central now, and I also have a 6th grader at Clark Middle.
Okay.
I've previously served on LSGTs for Chase. Anyway, so to Miss McNeely's point, not to that specific incident, but one thing I might suggest for maybe at the start of a school year, for example, we have a new group of parents that come in every year, whether they're kindergarten parents that have never had, kids in the school district before, or they're just new to our district moving, the transient population. So sometimes parents don't know how to react to the emails that they get when they get a lockdown email. We just got one today, in fact, by Mr. Barner for Clark Central. They're doing a lockdown tomorrow. So it was a little bit of a heads up. Hey, we're doing a drill tomorrow. Sorry, my dogs are barking. But I've had parents call me and say, am I supposed to respond to this email? Am I supposed to go pick up my kids? What am I supposed to do? And so I do think that it might be nice to give the different levels or the different tiers of those communications and whether or not they're actionable. Are they FYI? Are they actionable? How urgent are they? Maybe even in the subject line or at least the first couple of statements of the email.
Okay, that's excellent. And I'm just taking notes. I'm sorry, I'm up and down my head here. Okay.
I would like to also piggyback onto that. I also have a student at Clark Central. She's a sophomore this year. I think that if there is some sort of lockdown or any kind of incident that's would be considered an emergency or something that the parents need to know, I definitely think it'd be helpful to use some sort of call out system or text system because a lot of people, don't check their email regularly, potentially during the day, because what ends up happening is that, a student texts their parent and says, we're on lockdown, and then the parents panic. And so they're online trying to figure out what's going on. They're calling other parents or texting other parents. And then it just becomes a panicked situation where there's a lot of misinformation. Whereas if there was a clear guideline of like, okay, we're on a lockdown, here's step one. Step one is we do a call out. Well, first we tell the, obviously the administration, teachers, everybody should know what is going on first, and students. And then, let's get all the information out to the parents that we have in the timeliest fashion. I think that would definitely be helpful because I have noticed in the past when there are incidents, it very much becomes the community reaching out to each other. What's going on? I heard this. Well, I heard there was a, gunman on Millage Avenue. I heard that, so it would be helpful to kind of squash that at the beginning as much as you can. I know a lot of times you don't have all the information, like Rachel said, if, a threat level, if somebody knows, there's a police incident in town. So out of an abundance of caution, we decided to go on lockdown. Obviously that's a lower level than, something like an active shooter or something like that. But I do want to say in a positive way that I do feel the communication overall is better this year. I feel like we're getting information further out from events so that you have time to plan for them. You have time to look at your schedule and get it on your calendar. And I do feel like information overall has been much more thorough and helpful this year as opposed to last year.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. I know previously, there were parents who, talked about the number of surveys that we had and or interview parents. And because I would like to know in terms of even communicating with surveys that we've, had in the latter part of the year, are those flowing easier, to you all? And, have you been able to participate and feel that you're included quicker in the processes when we're doing surveys? Because we definitely want, we definitely want the communities, the parents input every step of the way. And so we, I just want to make sure, that some of your concerns that, not concerns, but just follow up from something that, we had discussed previously within the community. Are there any other issues or just comments about communication? And then before we move on to, I know we had restorative justice on our list tonight to hear from you about that.
I'll comment real quick on the surveys, you know,
Okay.
from again, parent perspective here,
Yeah.
not just my own, but also you know, in talking to other parents across the networks,
Mhm.
it does seem like people appreciate the opportunity to share their voice and the
Okay.
opportunity to respond to different types of questions and specific topics within the survey. So there is an appreciation to, even if there has to be multiple surveys,
Mhm.
if they're focused on a specific topic or a specific need, there's an appreciation for that. It seems it's fairly accessible to most people. I always challenge us to, you know, challenge our assumptions on whether or not it's truly accessible. I guess the
Yeah.
numbers would show that, which probably brings me to my biggest suggestion, which is what seems to be still lacking is a readout of the results or a report back. So it seems like the feedback is being requested to come in, but we're not hearing what's, you know, kind of the compilation of that or the summary of that back out.
Okay.
And so there's an element of, yes, you heard us, but did you, and what actions? So some sort of like readout or summary of the survey input on the collective, and then what are we doing about it? Or what are 1 or 2 action steps around that would be helpful.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go back through some of the solutions or opportunities that I jotted down. So maybe getting parents in early and helping them understand what the communications look like, especially when we're talking about like threats or lockdowns. A call tree, maybe a text out because people don't always check their email. Helping people understand what threat levels, like if it's just a hard lockdown versus a soft lockdown, I guess. And then a readout summary for all of the surveys that we do, or just the information that we collect throughout the year, and then making sure that that gets back out to the public at large. And then I'll probably add one is like just have sessions to where, like, if people have questions about the information that comes out, then we have people who can better interpret what the information means and then what we're going to do going forward with that information. Was there anything else I missed?
I was just going to add one thing from, I'm a counselor at the Career Academy and I have a first grader now at Oglethorpe Elementary. I just wanted to say, I think a way to gather from families the best way to communicate with them each year would be helpful. I know a lot of times in campus, the numbers and the emails are outdated and our families struggle with how to update those. So sometimes internally we have our own contact list, but just having that to make sure that we're actually serving families in the way that they prefer to get the information. Because I know for a lot of our families, email is not best, texting's great, but some prefer the other. So just kind of meeting families and students where they're at as far as how to communicate important information too would be good. I don't know if that could be a beginning of the year thing for families, but I just know sometimes by the time they get to us in senior year, some of the information is super outdated in campus.
I know we're still building on our restorative justice practices. Training is still taking place throughout the school district. Have you, some of you at some of the schools where you are maybe actively involved in the restorative justice? I know all of us are involved as a school, but some of you who may be more directly working with students in that area, can you tell us, some of your experiences of what you're seeing this year in terms of conflict and the handling of conflict and with our students? Are the circles working with the students? Are there suggestions?
It's I'm at Clark Central and I'm in the freshman academy, so I'm upstairs.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I personally requested, and I don't know if it was intentional, but our restorative room is upstairs with the freshman academy, and that is incredibly helpful. It's pretty centrally located for sometimes what we might consider our highest needs population. It's also our largest population. I mean, we have 600 freshmen at Clark Central. And so having first and foremost, just Mr. Malik and any restorative justice counselor, our new one, and I can't think of her name and I feel really bad, but she's so sweet and they're right there and very active. They're very personable. They're very much available to the students. I've seen them walk kids to class, talk, they're out in the hallways, and just being that other contact that's not really has no academic bearing on them at all whatsoever, and no punitive bearing on them either. It's just an advocate and a person that they can work with. And I've seen students, it's still, early days, but I certainly have seen students seeking them out, particularly last year when they started to really get into the routine of having restorative justice and restorative circles. And that person for them to access has been very, very helpful. I know that I have several colleagues who have done circles with students for anything from, minor conflicts in personality where they're just not, the kid and the teacher are just not clicking. And they've worked out some of their issues and have been able to talk them out. And I know there have been, I had some students that I referred to because they were thinking they were going to get into a scuffle with another group of kids. So they went and talked it down. So having, like I said, it's that intermediary, and it has been incredibly, from what I have seen, it's been incredibly helpful. Maybe not on like levels up here where the kids are ready to go. And we always have those that don't have the time or the patience, but those that have the wherewithal are truly taking advantage. And that, I think that culture, as it goes throughout our school district, will become more consistent, that kids will want to go and handle it calmly first before the explosiveness.
Wow, that's good to hear. Very happy to hear that. Has anyone else had any experiences or anything you would like to share, or any experiences with your children?
May I just ask a question? Is there anyone in this group who can give us an understanding of where we're at with restorative justice and practices across the district? I have some individual experiences with some schools, but I just don't have a good sense as a parent as to where are we at as a district, as a system, as a community with restorative practices. Is there anyone who can speak to that?
Well, I'll say this in a meeting a few, well, it might not have been a few months, but yeah, about 2 months ago, we had a discussion, where was a vote about continuing with Mr. Malik and his group. And basically, from my understanding, there was another organization that was hired to actually roll out, training. And so where we are now is that training is actually moving through the system. So there was a top tier level of training that took place, and then they're still continuing that training. It's been a slow process, to be honest, based on what was discussed, that evening. And so there are just a few schools who are using Mr. Malik and his training, but we're working to get everybody to the same point. And it will take a little time as the training is going through the district from, to the principal level, and then with personnel within the school, because the goal is that all of you will receive training. So that's where we are.
That's really helpful to hear that the organization that was, contracted, if you will, is still moving forward. And I think it was like a train the trainer style.
That's right. Train the trainer.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, great. Good to know that that's still moving forward, even if it is slow, still progress.
Yeah, it's moving slow.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else? Because we're really, my understanding of these advisory boards, I haven't been to one, was that to listen. So so that's definitely what I want to do, and definitely I will answer, questions as best I can. And I believe the next thing that we can go ahead, Karina. I'm sorry.
So I just like to ask, like, for everyone, So what does restorative justice look like in your school? What's been your personal experience with it, or communication with students about what that looks like or how beneficial or not that it's been with whatever restorative practice that you're using inside of your school or your students are sharing with you? Or have you heard anything about restorative justice at all? And it's just something that we keep on saying and it's not happening.
Karina, I do think there's a lot of work to be done on raising awareness, to your point, just there. I think some people are becoming aware of what the term means, but they don't really know what it looks like on the daily, or, how is it actually implemented within a school. As a parent, at Chase, Clark Middle, and Clark Central, I will say, we've had some different experiences at Clark Middle and Clark Central with it. I think all of it, though, just if I could generalize, it still seems very reactionary, and it does seem to be pretty much reserved for when there is a moment of conflict. I think that's great. I think it's awesome, and I think it's very helpful for all the reasons that Miss McNeely just described a little bit ago from her perspective. I think the shift, though, where if we could ultimately get to a place where it's not just for the moment of conflict, but it's proactive. It's the communication, it's the respect, it's the trust building, it's all of the things to hopefully prevent that conflict from happening to begin with. And from what my kids tell me, that's not what's happening. They see restorative practices as, the conflict has happened, we need to come into circle to fix it. So more on the reparation side. I'm not saying that's bad at all. I just think that's where we are in the journey. So.
It's so funny you say that, Rachel. Today, I wasn't at school today, but we had advisement at Clark Central, and today's advisement topic was on nonviolent communication. And so we are using advisement times for that social emotional communication, how to handle certain situations, de-escalate. And it's just funny because I posted it for my advisees before I left. So there are other moves that are being made. We had restorative justice night.
Last week.
Was that last week?
Yeah.
Sorry. Last week, I also said, I'm so happy it's Thursday. And Dr. Huff said, McNeely, it's Wednesday or Tuesday. It was Tuesday. I'm way out of my days, y'all. I am way out of my days. So it was it could have been yesterday. I don't know. But yes. And so we are at Clark Central. Again, I can only speak for that, making moves to have this become an entrenched part in every regard, proactive, reactive, interactive. And I know that they have really worked hard. We've had this the 6 years in some way, shape, or form. We've had this for the 6 years I've been at Clark Central, and the teachers are also undergoing training. We have equity circles, and we are discussing issues, some biases, things like microaggressions, institutional racism, how we deal with it, how we interpret it, how we ourselves are projecting it without realizing it. So there are things like that we're doing that are very proactive, and they're hard, and they're going to take a while. And I don't know what the other schools are doing, but from what I understand, a lot of them are doing pieces of this. Mr. Miller, Cedar, are you guys doing stuff like that?
Thank you for that.
They're doing restorative here. I haven't heard anything, not something that's, rounded about, but I am on the LSGT team for Clark Middle. And we just had a meeting recently, and Dr. Gorham was telling me that one thing that they do is they have like this Google form that you can set up a circle before like it gets to the fight. Like say you want to circle with another student or another teacher or whatever, you can actually go into this Google form and y'all can set up a circle. And she said that that's been working pretty good. Like the students are actually using the form to set up circles before it gets to the point where it's like a fight, so that I think they're just trying different things, and it seems to be moving forward, even if slow. But I honestly have not heard of much restorative over here at Cedar, but I do know they're trying to really pound the pavement and get them kids doing some good things over there at Clark Middle.
It's good to hear.
I'd like to add that when my daughter was having some issues last year, I came to the school, and the restorative justice counselor came into the meeting that we were having. The assistant principal was there. I think there was another person there. I can't remember who. I'm sorry. But anyway, it wasn't called restorative justice, but in hindsight, I realized it was kind of set up like restorative justice, where, you know, my daughter was able to say what she wanted to say. I could say what I wanted to say. There's sort of just, you know, everybody in the room got to say what they wanted to say. And what I appreciated about it is that they asked her, how can we best support you moving forward? You know, this is an issue that you're having. She was not going to class, was coming to class late and all, and that kind of thing. And so it puts the onus on her to come up with solutions instead of being like, well, you're not coming to class, so you're suspended. Okay, let's talk about how we can, you know, how can you help us and how can you help yourself improve the situation? So in hindsight, I kind of realized that it was similar to something that I think restorative justice is. And I really appreciated that. It made her kind of think about, you know, what she needed or what she could do. I would like to say also that I think as far as restorative justice goes, the parents probably need some more information about it. I think some of them don't know what it is still. I'm not sure how they can get that information. I think having the restorative justice night at Clark Central was very helpful. So hopefully as you move forward, you'll continue to do that in the schools implemented. I do think that some parents maybe see it as a negative because they feel like, well, if a student did something wrong, they should be punished. Why should they be put into a room and get to talk about it and talk it out? They should just be suspended from school, or, you know, the punishment should fit the crime, that kind of mindset. So I think there needs to be probably a little more education about, you know, why is this different? How is this better? You know, how this might work in our school system. So yeah, sorry, I trailed off there. Those are just my thoughts.
Well, they were excellent. Thank you.
Heather, I think it's a very good point, and that actually did come up at the restorative justice informational session last week. That was probably the biggest source of questions, beyond just like the practical application, like what does it look like in the classroom? What does a circle look like? You know, but the pushback type of question and conversation was really centered on that. And it was very helpful to hear Danny talk through that and how he describes it and the purpose. And Ms. Smith also stood up, teachers stood up, the ones on the, you know, restorative practices committee for the school offered some really good, you know, real world, confidentially, of course, but some real world examples of how it's helped. So the more that we can get that narrative out there, and I think it's going to have to be beyond informational sessions. I will say that there was probably only 10 of us at that session last week. So that was a little disappointing. So somehow we're going to have to get the messaging and the information and the narrative out there in other creative ways.
Okay, so what I got is the restorative room at Clark Central Works. Communication on where we are as a district with restorative justice, define what restorative justice is, and then assess whether we are being proactive and interactive versus just reactive, and across the district, not just at Clark Central, where we're doing all the things. And then communicating how this works, and then what our expectations are as a district, and then info sessions for everyone in the district. Y'all got any more suggestions? Y'all got any other things y'all think we could do as a district to?
Do we have a website? I mean, is that on our website where there's some explanations, maybe bullet points, just some some resources to help parents understand? Do we have that?
We can ask.
Okay.
Website.
I was going to say, I'm Shanice Allen, or Dr. Allen. and I'm on the LSGT at Clark Central, and I'm a community member. And so I always hear the term restorative justice, even attending school board meetings or listening to them. And as a community member, I really don't know what it is. I kind of picked up what it is, but just like Ms. McNeely said, if maybe that information is put out so that community members really know what it is, what the goal of it is, and how it's going, it would be great. But I just go along with the, okay, restorative justice, it works, it doesn't work, okay. But it would be really good to know exactly what it is and what is it supposed to accomplish. So sorry, I don't have children. I'm just a community member.
You're not just a community member.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, we do have something. It's on the district webpage, but it's pretty scant.
Minimal.
But like on
Wow.
Facebook or Instagram or, something out where, because everyone is not necessarily on the, the website or whatever. But
And that goes right back, Shanice, to communication and the ways that people need communication. We need them to be able to come to us to communicate, even if we're inaccessible. The website, the Facebook, the social media. I'll tell you, just from a human being side, it's gonna say something here. I love my Instagram posts from the school and the school district, because they are just little chunks that if I need to know, they're the headlines. And so if I need to know, I can go in a little bit further. But that has always been really helpful. I know that we have the app. I feel like I haven't gotten a lot or heard a lot from that, or maybe I need to refresh it. But I love my little Instagram posts and the good news and the reminders and things like that has been incredibly helpful for me in my own building.
Let me just add in here that I think, and I don't want to just toss this word out, but I go back to when COVID hit and we realized that a good portion of our population does not have access to internet and all these other things outside of schools. So while communication is great for those of us that are privileged to have that sort of access to social media, we need to remember that there, and I can't remember the exact detail, but could have been 50% maybe of our population. We had to find ways to get hotspots to these kids and their parents so that they can do their homework, which basically translates into they probably don't have access to some of these social media things that we're talking about. So if we go back to communication, what are we doing as a district to improve that communication to that demographic? What meetings are we having with the Athens-Clarke County government to sort of make sure we have internet access to the entire county for everybody to use, reliable access to internet for the entire county, and maybe. So yeah, what are we doing with that? Yeah, I will admit I'm privileged to be able to have internet access at work and at home and wherever I go, but there are some people that don't have that.
So I do know that the county is doing a broadband survey, and that's on their website, which if you don't have internet, it's hard to get to. But I think they're making some additional efforts to get to communities that they know don't have internet access, so that when they use the GIS mapping, they can see where the gaps are to push for, I think we've been pushing for a cloud for a long time, but for make sure that we have broadband internet for everyone. So I think there's some steps being taken, but people move faster when people show up and say something. So yes, reach out to the county and ask them about broadband for everyone in our county. But I did put that on the list of things that we need to make sure that we are communicating as a board. So thank y'all. Anything else? Oh, I do want to go back to communication. So one form of communication is Parent Portal. Are all of y'all familiar with Parent Portal? And Parent Portal is working for you. You get regular updates, you know, where your students' information, what the grades look like, what's missing, all of those millions of tardy alerts that I get. Yes, everyone's got that. So Parent Portal is good. Okay. Okay, Tawana.
More parents need to be on it, but it's good. I mean, like even
I'm wondering that.
a couple of advisees where I'm talking to the parent had no idea that it even existed. And I'm in high school. So that means these parents went to elementary school and middle school and don't even know what Parent Portal is, or didn't get hooked up to it, or whatever it is. Not blaming the elementary or middle schools, but that just seems really, it's kind of wild to me that high school aren't at least know what it is, or, you know. So there was a couple parents that I had to actually walk through to get them on Parent Portal so they can understand what it was. But Parent Portal is great if you actually sign up and get hooked up to it. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Do we know, to Monty's point, do we know the percent utility? Are we able to even look at that? How many are on it? I don't know what kind of metrics we have around that app, the usage of that app. You know?
That's a great question. We're absolutely gonna look into it.
Are you putting that note down in your notebook?
I am. It's on my notes.
And I wonder if it goes also back to Mr. Green's comment there about access as well. You know, if you don't have good access to the internet, you're probably not inclined to use an app. There's probably other reasons too, but.
I'd like to add too, you know, if you know that there's certain events that parents come to, let's have people there with information. Let's have a piece of paper that talks about restorative justice, and here's how you get it onto your kid's Parent Portal, and, you know, here's how you do all of these things. Sometimes just a piece of paper is great. I know when my daughter started kindergarten at Oglethorpe, they sent every family a postcard. And I mean, just old fashioned mail, you know, you send it to somebody's house, and said there was, you know, the ice cream social and meet the teachers at the beginning of the year. And then once you have all those people there, okay, let's give them all the information they need. How do you find out information? Let them know there's a, you know, weekly folder that comes home with your students, so you know to look in their book bag, you know, things like that. Anytime you have the parents in the building for any event, be it parent-teacher conferences, be it a football game, even, like, if there's some information, you get to them at a football game, you know. Anytime there's parents there, like, let's try and get them information. And I think that would be really helpful. You know, and like you said, for people that don't have internet access, you know, here's the ways that you can be involved, or not be involved, but get information. I think that would be helpful.
That was startling for me, Mr. Montu, about, you know, the high school level not being on Parent Portal. Definitely should look into that. The next thing on our list is school and property safety. And I know that's you know, a hot topic. You know, a lot's been going on in our schools. Are there any immediate concerns that you all have regarding safety at your schools? Are we feeling safer than we did, you know, last year?
I know, I'm sorry that I keep chiming up here, you know, piping up, but I know that Dr. Hooker is very familiar, and as are many of you, at how porous Clark Central's campus can be. We are so centrally located. We are urban, we have major streets all around us. But I have to say this year, I know that Dr. Huff and the administrators, along with our security, have gone to great lengths. And I apologize if you guys hear my dogs wrestling, to make sure that our campus is much, much tighter, more secure. Our doors are locked. Students are not letting other students in. The gates are being monitored, and the Centegix badges have been helpful. If y'all know what I'm talking about, there are alert system if we have a need for security or even the nurse, and it's an emergency button. And so those have been very helpful. And I think it's an overall feeling of they've got us. And even to this end, the fact that it was a little annoying as a teacher that the lockdown email went out before we were even out of lockdown. But the fact is, there's the safety. They're letting everyone know as fast as they possibly can. The drill tomorrow at Clark Central, the things that they're doing to keep our students safe has been extremely improved. I think I was teaching at Clark Middle when 9/11 happened, and we had training following that about school safety. And I feel like we're kind of back, not in a good way, but we're back in that era of being a little bit more aware. But that also means that we're thinking and planning and making accommodations, and that felt good. And then, I was there at Clark Middle when we had the intruder in 2007. And so there have been measures that I feel like that will never happen. I can't say never, but that is very, 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 very unlikely. So I feel safe. I've always felt safe in my schools. And so to that end, I will shut up.
Any suggestions or ideas around how like we can improve safety and security on all or any of our campuses? I also want to throw in like beautification. Like, how do you feel like our schools look, which will probably lead us into our next thing. But like beautification and like what it looks like when you drive past the school, because just because you're at one school doesn't mean you're always at that school. If you're in Athens, you're going to pass by at least 5 of our 21, 22 schools. So, what do you think? Like, can we do better? Are schools looking great? Have you heard really great things? Have you talked to students about, like what the bathrooms look like? And don't raise your eyebrows one too. I seen that. What the bathrooms look like, or what's going on in the bathrooms. Just what do you think? So that ties in with safety in schools, and then our next thing, which is school or district pride, which can't wait to get into that. But
well, I think Central looks beautiful.
Okay.
Like Central is live right now. Like when you drive by Central, like whichever exit, like you see even to the point where you can see like the turf on the field, like
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
college campus, like for real. Like, so Central looks great. And I know we're doing some building over here at Cedar, but even pre all that, like it just, and we talk about this in my class all the time, because I have a peer leadership class. We talk about this all the time. The level of inequity, like just people look at Central like as that's, you know what I'm saying? Like that, like it's beautiful. It's great. It's right by UGA. It's right there on Baxter. Like it's great. Whereas you kind of go down, in the cut right here in Cedar, it's just kind of like, it's all right, I guess. Like it just ain't the same. Like it's not even close. Like I said, I know we're going through some building and we're supposed to be having some things happen around here. So I'm hoping that all this, like Cedar kind of catches up, I hope eventually. But most of the schools I drive by look good, you know, and then, I know Clark Middle is about to go through their big build too. Once that's done, I know that's gonna look really, really live.
Yeah.
But the main thing is like, once it's all said and done, we want Cedar to look just as great as CC.
Well, I want to say this. I'm on the LSGT again at Central, and I know that the past couple of years we worked really hard on signage and lighting, because that safety is important. And so, but I am a graduate of Cedar Shoals High School, and I live on the east side, and yeah, we're going to have to do better. But I know that was a task of the LSGT, making sure that that was done. So I know the money did directly come from the district to say, you all do this and we're not going to give it to Cedar. But that was, you know, goals that we had as a LSGT to get that done. But yeah, at this point, we do need to do something to make all the schools look good, because when the kids go to school, you know, they want to go to the one that looks good, flashy, nice turf, you know, the helicopter goes and flies on the turf and all that good stuff. So we want to get some of that on the east side too. So whatever we need to do, if we need some surveys, we need to have some fish fries, we need to get it done. Because yeah, I said fish fries. Whatever we need to do to get the money to get it done, so that we can have pride in our schools and everyone feels good regardless of which door you go into.
I know I spoke at a when Miss Katie Johnson was over at Cedar, and I went over to her class for some presentations that they were making, and there were these two. They were actually sisters, and they did a presentation on pride, on building pride, and then they had a whole club around this pride, and they were going over to Hillsman School to try to build pride early, you know. And I thought, you know, and that, you know, that for the students feeling the need to take that burden on, you know, which I thought it was great. But it made me feel some kind of way, you know, that, you know, hey, look, we're going to do whatever we can. And so definitely that's something that we have talked about my entire time on the board, is how do we find that balance of making sure that that our students feel good about the, you know, about their school, you know, and I am proud that this, you know, that there are a group of leaders within, you know, Cedar, because that's where I visited, you know, and I saw it firsthand that, you know, they do love their school and they want to make sure that incoming students feel that pride and come to games even before they enter the campus, you know. And I thought that was innovative on the you know, on behalf of the students. You know, and that we definitely need to continue, which I'm glad that we have our student advisory board, you know, to, you know, the superintendent, so that we know we hear from the mouth of babes, and, you know, and they have a lot of good and innovative ideas as well. They are very creative. You know, we've been having murals, you know, on walls, you know, and I was at the Career Academy a few weeks ago to speak with the class, and I walk, because I like to walk the steps, because honestly I'm scared of elevators. but I know it's sad, but so I was walking, and then Miss Dr. Elder, she was like, I need you to see something anyway. And so she came and showed me the mural, and it has Better Together, and they have all three mascots together hugging. It's a beautiful mural, and that really touched my heart to see that a few weeks ago. So we do have a long way to go, but I'm hopeful, especially with the students that we're cranking out now. They're leading the way, and we're following some of those ways. We will get there, you know, with the pride, but I know with the aesthetics and things like that, we do have to continue to work hard from our levels as the district.
On the note of pride, I know that it was, I believe, last year, but again, it could have been last week. You got my time frame. I remember the football players and the cheerleaders went to the elementary schools and greeted the kids as they came in. And I think just starting from, you know, as you said, to want to like down there with the littles and, you know, bringing that pride, having that vertical support.
Yes.
And on that note, it might be something to look at that we have football nights. It's elementary night. And so like elementary kids come and there's something different or special for them, or the middle school, to invite that in to make it not just, we certainly have a great turnout, but not just Clark Central, but just community. And this is
That's
your
right.
school and this is where you're coming. I think that would be great. Also school property, school pride. Yes, Clark Central, they've always done a bang up job. I too went to Cedar Shoals. Shanice and I were there at the same time when Cedar Shoals looked like one massive trailer. So it's much
Not a
improved.
trailer.
It has walls. We did not have interior walls. We had dividers. So it's way better. But there and inside Clark Central several years ago, they did a lot. It's painted and we have
It's beautiful,
massive
yeah.
decals. Some of our decals have come off. The kids have picked at them a little bit, and those are being replaced. We do have the interior signage, as Shanice mentioned, and that's also very helpful. But recently, the bathrooms have become a bit of an issue. As a matter of fact, it came up at one of our meetings, I think it was last week, and some of our students are reporting, and I don't think it's a massive population, but our trans and non-binary students are not feeling safe in our bathrooms. They're not feeling safe. There are students who, and this is going to happen in high schools, but they are, hanging out in the bathrooms. They are smoking in the bathrooms. We're working on that. And then again, just the sheer fact of using which bathroom when has become a little bit difficult. The bathrooms that I think are single stall are out on our west wing. I think they're not single stall, but those are still locked for safety purposes. We did that during COVID, and now we just don't have enough monitors. And I think there were issues with graffiti. So I know that we've had students a few weeks ago. This is just one minor incident, but I personally was waiting to go to the bathroom in our little teacher workroom, and out came a student, and I said, what are you doing? She said, our bathrooms are nasty. I'm not going in. And I thought, okay.
Wow.
I don't know what that means. Well, they won't flush. And I know that we don't have enough custodial staff, and the ones that we have are working their butts off and doing phenomenal with what they can.
Yes.
But those are some of the things that have come up in the past. And I think I'm just rambling. I think we're still in the recovery mode from last year's devious licks. So from what I've seen, we still don't have, not in all of our bathrooms, we don't have all of our soap dispensers returned.
Okay.
I haven't been in to see, aside from the one near me, we have the stalls, but the interior sink isn't working. So it's these little things those are the things that the kids tend to collectively kind of hone in on because they use it. It's their facility. And that's frustrating for them. As beautiful as our school looks, that's the thing that sticks.
Yeah. Wow. And I do want to give one other shout out. I was on the Clark County School District, I think Facebook a few weeks ago, and at Winterville Elementary, just aligned with what you were saying, Megan. They had the cheerleaders, so that's one of the things. They had the little Winterville cheerleaders. They cheered at a game, and so again, instilling that pride even from elementary up. I think we just have to continue to do more of that, and I know I've had calls about the stalls and the soap dispensers being taken out. All of us have had those calls, and hopefully that's something in the near future that would be resolved.
Having the bus monitors during the day has been really helpful. I know that for us, they're not there all day because then they have to go and they have to drive their routes. But in the afternoon, it gets harder. It gets messier to the point where this morning we actually were discussing in our team meetings. I know it was this morning for sure. Using some of our planning time. We haven't decided, but we are just kind of getting some feelers. We may have to sit outside bathrooms during our planning in shifts to make sure that kids are using the facilities as they should, which is kind of sad, actually.
Yeah, that hurts to hear. No.
Yeah, the whole monitor thing, I thought that was really innovative, what y'all did over there. We had that over here, you know, maybe it should probably happen, but you know, it hasn't yet, or maybe it will, maybe it hasn't, but I was over at Central at one point during the day and I was wondering who these people were. And then I found out like they were, you know, bus drivers or whatnot. And I think
Yeah.
be innovative, like, you know. And I don't know how sharing goes, but like some of the things that happens over here, some things that happen over there, I think that we do need to share a little bit more. Like
Mhm.
ideas need to be really like whatever's working for Central, we need to try it over here at Cedar. It may not work over here at Cedar because it's a different population, but some things we met working over here may work over there. So I think the sharing needs to happen a little bit more. And to piggyback off that, I also think like the feeder schools need to be a little bit more connected. You know, like y'all are talking about like having
Yeah.
that like the middle schools and elementary schools, like I just think that like that actual pathway needs to be a little bit more present. Like people really know that. I mean, everybody knows, like, you know, okay, Timothy, Clark Middle, Central, like people know the pathways, but I just think like if the pathway was a little bit more apparent, you know, like we would need to have it like, okay, you're going to Central next year. Because one thing that Dr. Gorham did that I thought was really cool is you still have to wear uniform pants, but you can wear any shirt, like any shirt any day. And one of, you know, like they like wearing Central gear. So, you know, you got Clark Middle kids wearing Central gear because they know they're going there next year and they can't wait to. So I'm saying all to say, like, I just think that like sharing needs to go on in like just the feeder schools. And like, I just think like it needs to be more of a sense of a real community and connectedness and sharing these ideas and having all this going on. And last thing I'll say is, yes, our bathrooms are whew. Don't even get me started on our bathrooms are bad. Like your bathrooms are bad. Like, you know, like they're nasty. And, you know, sometimes I go in there and I'm like, nope, I'm going to the teacher's bathroom. Like teacher's bathrooms are bad. Yeah.
Can I just add back to what you were sharing, sharing information between buildings as at the Career Academy, since we work with both high schools, we see it a lot, the disparities between what Central's doing, what Cedar's doing. We hear it a ton from students too about going back to their buildings. And this is my 5th year here. And I think it was just the tail end of when I started that the high school, I think it was called Advisory Council, was meeting. And maybe it was lead counselors from the buildings, admin. I think Don Myers at the time was in those meetings too. And there were board policies that impacted the buildings. There were instructional things that we covered. And so that people were on the same page a little bit more between the schools at the high school level. And then the other thing that happened, I think in the past, was advisement was also kind of centralized because Career Academy is doing our own advisement. Central does their own advisement. Cedar does something completely different. And because we also have a lot of students going back and forth between buildings, having some consistency across would be really helpful, not just in advisement, just kind of across the board when students are going back and forth, just to make sure both with equity, but also just informational and making sure, you know, access to resources and all those things are happening. I think that's a big issue in the high school level, at least.
Actually, someone talked with me in Kroger last week. You know, that's where I meet people at, and she was saying some of the same exact things. She was saying that about the feeder school. She was saying that, you know, the schools need to talk better so that some of the activities and things are shared, you know, better, because a lot of time she doesn't even know what's going on, or she'll see it after the fact, you know, and I told her I would share that, you know, with the board, you know, and so it is aligning with what, you know, like as other parents might be thinking.
Okay, so one thing that has come up quite a few times, and Ms. Heidi might be able to speak to this, is advisement or students talking with counselors and they don't know who the counselor is until their senior year of school because the priority is to get them
That's
into
true.
college.
Yeah.
Where are y'all with that? How do you think we could fix that? Like, what are some solutions, suggestions?
I mean, I feel very lucky to have a second counselor at the Career Academy this year, and I know that makes a big difference because we have a smaller student to counselor ratio. I hear that from my students a lot, and I always defend my counselors in the other buildings that we have a very different building. We have a very different vibe in my building, and the responsibilities are also very different in the big schools than they are at the Career Academy. I think, you know, it again with consistency, and admin is different in each building, but what I'm hearing from my colleagues is there's a workload that's different in different buildings. And so the expectations that we meet with every student on our caseload every year to do academic planning, and that doesn't mean to talk about the colleges they're enrolling when that means having time to sit and actually meet them where they're at and figure out how we can help them with a plan for after high school, starting ideally even earlier than 10th grade. I mean, we start with 10th graders. So I think it can't be the minute meetings with juniors. That's just, that format doesn't work because we can't serve students in the way that we need to if we have a group of 6 juniors with all different needs and all different desires for what they want in the future. It has to be that individualized time and relationship building, and even doing classroom things is difficult too. So I know getting out in the beginning of the year and saying, we're your counselors, here are the things we can help with. I've even heard about, you know, putting posters around the building of your face on the wall, just so if they see you in the hall and you haven't had a chance to meet with them, they know that's Miss Heyer. You can come to her about these things, or even tearing off, we do Bitly links so they can sign up for a meeting really easily. So, and I definitely think it's not that the other high school counselors, we're not doing anything differently. I do think a big part of it is our student to counselor ratio, that we're able to do that because of the time that we have with students.
I would just like to advocate for more counselors across the board in every school. Honestly, I think every student would benefit from counseling. On top of what goes on regularly in their life, we had this pandemic that came and people lost, you know, students lost family members lost jobs. You know, there was a lot of trauma just associated with that on top of regular life. So I would love to see more counselors in every single school across the board because they have so many students. And last year, my daughter really struggled and her counselor was a lifeline. I just think they're really, really important. I mean, by the end of the year, I jokingly called him my bestie because, I mean, I had to communicate a lot with him. She needed a lot of help. So I am very pro counselor, like as many as possible in all the schools.
I'll just add, I really was thinking I was going to have a really hard time coming back this year without a second counselor because the mental health needs of the students were so increased from post-pandemic. And I think that counselors, yes, and also the mental health therapy is huge. And so Career Academy currently doesn't have one. So thankfully half-day students can see theirs in the building. But even Advantage, one of our major providers, has said we're maxed out right now. And so even virtual counseling, it's great. But for some of my students, it takes 4 or 5 meetings with them to get them to agree to see a counselor. And then when I say it's going to be virtual now, they're out. So they need that face-to-face. And I know it's a struggle across our country, but just anything we can do to get that mental health therapy in addition to counseling would be awesome for students.
Okay.
Do all the, we have a mental health counselor. Do all the schools have that? Is it the 2 high schools? Is it just Clark Central? Like how is that distributed?
From what I understand, I know the 2 high schools have a mental health therapist. And then I don't believe unless they're shared between buildings. I don't believe it's at the middle school or elementary level that they have mental health therapists. They have Advantage that can sometimes come in, and Apex and other programs that can serve. But as far as one in the building full-time, I think it's just at the high schools, but I may be wrong on that.
So I was looking at ours and just trying to figure out how it works, because we have quite, I mean, it's likely close to doubled since I started at Clark Central 6 years ago. We have 2 in the freshman academy, and then there are the 4 that split the 10 through 12. But we also have, graduation coach, college advisor. We have 1 counselor who's dedicated to 504s and dual enrollment, and then mental health. But even if you just look at, and then our school social worker, I cannot forget about Ashley Simpson Haley. But if you just look at those that are, simply counselors, they're dealing with over 300 students each. So I don't know, without doubling even that, how it would work where they can really get in with students. And I guess that's where advisement really is going to be, and has been very, very critical, so that the kids have that point person all the way through.
And the other thing that came up recently was, I know some of those positions are CARES Act funded. And that's concerning too, just moving forward. If those positions are CARES Act funded, what happens when that money is gone?
One thing that I would add to that kind of just conversation from the parent's perspective is, I'm not sure I have, and again, I'm a freshman parent, so I'm new, I'm trying to learn all the things right now, but I'm not sure I have a really good understanding of the advisor's role, or even what happens in advisement. Even coming out of the parent teacher conferences a couple of weeks, like it was 20 minutes, it was meet and greet mostly. Questions I had weren't able to be answered. So I don't know. And I don't know that that's her role even to answer some of the questions I had. So I'm not sure if we need to just better communicate about the advisors and the advisement kind of role and process, and then who are all some of these other support systems that are available. I didn't even know we had mental health therapists. I didn't know we had a graduation coach, Ms. McNeil, whatever that term was you just used. So it's seeming to me, at least in this moment, that we could probably do a little bit of better job to communicate out to the parents of what these resources are.
Okay. I put that down.
Thank you.
Okay, so we want to be respectful of everyone's time. I think this was an hour and 15 minutes, Emily. Okay. And so, but I do want to just go back around and see if anyone has any other suggestions or comments on school property safety, school and district pride, effective communication, and or discipline and restorative practices.
I was going to say something about since we're on this whole advisement thing.
Okay.
I think that advisement has to be reimagined. We have to do something different. Like, I work with my advisees, and like we do our thing in here, but just like it just has to be some of like the platforms and the things that they have us showing the kids. It's kind of like, it's really not that good. I mean, like the 7 mindsets, it's good, but like it's the way it's set up and the way that I guess it's all about presentation. Like maybe I don't know, but I just think we really need to reimagine advisement and how we spend that time. Like if I have that time, and I'll say, I do want to be respectful of everybody's time too, but going back to Rachel. So with me, if when we're meeting in parent teacher conference, that should not be the first time I'm talking to you. Like me in advising, like I have a Google number and I'm texting my advisees' parents all the time. Like we are talking all the time. So if you have a question, you're probably asking it way before the conferences. When conferences come, we're talking about is grades, boom, 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 boom. Like it is 20 minutes and we really don't need more than 20 minutes. McNeely is my daughter's account and we talk all the time. So I'm just saying the whole system, I think, is the way it's set up, I think we need to we kind of need to have a sit down and reimagine what advisement actually means and where we're going with it, what kind of value we want to get out of it. Like, what do we want it to be, instead of just one day a week we're with one teacher and they show some PowerPoint presentation that half the kids aren't even listening to. So I just think we need to think about doing it different. Yeah.
Yeah, nailed it right there. Thanks. Agreed.
I didn't get a chance to say hi, Dr. Hooker. I don't know if you remember me, but I worked for you for a couple years.
Sir, how can I forget you? Yes.
Yeah. You see, I'm a teacher now. I finally made it.
I was going to say with advisement, I agree with you. I think it's one of those pieces that the clarity needs to be there. And of course, the consistency is going to be different depending on the teacher. And Rachel, to that end, a lot of times freshmen advisees are brand new teachers, or at least brand new to our building. So they're kind of learning it as they go with you. So I know that my first freshman class, it was a little bit rough just because I had never done that. I mean, I'd have been an advisor, but it was still, there was some rough stuff. But yeah, there are some things that I think it can work a little bit better. I know that there are some kids that just, their advisors they don't mesh. The parents don't know them. And so there are ways that we can maybe improve that. Solutions oriented. I always am looking for solutions and ways to improve. I love my advisees and their parents. We have great conferences. They're kind of fun. So I enjoy that. And I look forward to talking to them. I put out snacks and, I like to have coffee. And so it makes them come to the conferences. And to that end, I keep snacks in my classroom, and I have a student who emails me on the daily, who's an advisee who I've never ever taught, for snacks and those kinds of things. It's just about building those connections. And so there are some brand new teachers that they may not realize that's exactly what their job is. And Lord knows they're just trying to keep their head above water. And that's just one more thing. So yeah, there's going to be inconsistencies across. So I just wanted to throw that out. Little grace, little patience.
No, I totally understandable. I think the more that you all share best practices and tips and tricks across your teams, the better that's going to be too. That helps to bring alongside those newer teachers, or the ones who maybe it's not their natural tendency. It's not, it's very uncomfortable for them to lead advisement, all the reasons, whatever it is. But the more that you can share best practices across, and then help us as parents understand what we're empowered to do. We, as a parent, I'm sitting here thinking, well, I don't know. I don't want to bother people. You're busy all day. You're dealing with all these other things. I don't really even know who to email. Is it the advisor? Is it the teacher? Is it a counselor? Is it a coach? I have no idea. So
I always tell my advisees and their parents, I am your number one point of contact. I am the first person you need to call.
So it is the advisor.
That's what I do. That's what I tell Montu. He texts me at 7 o'clock in the morning and is the PSAT today or not? That kind of thing. So that way, then they have one person, one contact, and you're with me for 4 years. And if I need to get you to the right person, I can help guide that.
Yeah.
But that's what I say to my parents. And I think that's something that, is sort of standard. That's why we have the advisement program, so that your kids are with, 20 kids with one teacher for all 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's why that helps that load off the counselors, those 300 kids.
Yeah, exactly.
That's, I write the recommendation letters. I don't necessarily know a lot about the college stuff. I learned it with my last crew. And of course, in 4 years, it's going to change again, but then I can have the college advisor come, so it's just something that we can use and utilize better, because we don't know all the time what we're supposed to be doing. So Miller said, Monty was talking about, we have presentations that we go over, but, sometimes, okay, beyond that, what do we do? And new teachers, it's a little overwhelming, or it can be.
Sure.
Okay. I'd just like to say really quickly that, sorry.
No,
I'd just like to say really quickly that my daughter's advisor has been amazing. And last year was her first year being in the school. But one thing she did is she called us actually before the school year started. and introduced herself and said, I'm your point person. So that was extremely helpful. So I think that that's something that maybe should be implemented by other advisors, because that was really great. When I did have a question, I knew I could call her, and now I have her phone number and she can text me. I can text her. It's really it's been really great.
Erwin, you can always reach out to me.
Thank you.
I'll send you the right way.
Thank you.
Okay. So Mr. Green, Dr. Allen, anything on communication, restorative justice, safety, or pride?
So my question is, restorative justice, is that a district-wide program, or is that individual for schools?
So it's a district-wide focus, and we're working on making it a district-wide practice.
And who gets to define what the practice is?
So we are hoping that you will engage with us and help us as a district better define it. Because we are in baby stages, or in my personal opinion, because we haven't rolled it all the way out. And on our list of things to do, and I do want to clarify, because I'm gonna go back through my list, that as a board members, we can't get into operations. We can take your information and then share it and like push it. I can be real loud about it, but I can't get into operations. so I don't mind being loud about stuff, so share it with me. So the implementation of it, our role is to ask questions. I feel like our role is to ask questions and then, like do some accountability. But on my list of things to do is to remind the district that we need to improve our communication around what restorative justice, which restorative practices are, and then how we implement them as a district. So I don't have the answer, but we can find some solutions.
Okay, thank you. And welcome back, Dr. Hooker.
I want to say I've learned a lot tonight just by everyone sharing their thoughts and feelings. So thank you for that. It was a great agenda. And I look forward to more discussion with this group. And welcome, Dr. Hooker, and thank you.
Thank y'all so much. So safety, I want to go through these last two. So safety, I just put that we have improved. And then for pride, we definitely need to work on cross communication between schools and departments, connect better with feeder schools. We need to make sure that we can see the equity in our district and not just talk about it. Bathrooms are definitely something that we need to encourage the district to address, not just for cleanliness, but safety, and improving our student pride in our schools. And we talked about the counselor ratio, so maybe encouraging the district to look at the impact of our current student to counselor ratio, and then what that looks like and how that directly impacts students. I put more counselors, like 3 times. And then what is an advisor? So better defining what that is and helping parents understand who their student's advisor is and what their role is. And then reimagine what advisory looks like for advisors. Was there anything else I need to add to that?
Rachel just popped something in the chat and absolutely stole what I was about to say. Speaking of pride, we need to consider some more bathroom situations and other situations for our non-binary trans students.
Okay.
Maybe even looking at ways that we are promoting language usage. At the beginning of every year, we have a training on, it's very informal, but training. We have a talk about using students' pronouns. They're given their going names. There's terms that keep changing, not their dead names.
Yeah.
the respect for the non-gendered, I have a bad habit of going, yes, ma'am, and then, ooh,
Yeah.
sorry. So working that back, or Miss McNeely or Mix McNeely, MX, just a little more,
Yeah.
maybe education, maybe a little more responsiveness to those more populous groups. I mean, they're getting larger.
And those identities start to form in elementary school. So I think we need to also do our best to try to advocate for those exact same trainings at the elementary school level, not just the middle school and high school level.
Okay.
Training and resources, not just training.
Okay, I put across the district.
Yeah, but bingo. Thank you.
So I guess, does Clark Middle in the new school plan, do they have considerations for bathrooms to accommodate? That may be something just to throw out there.
I just went to the building meeting last week and I cannot remember. I'm sorry.
And I mentioned it to a teacher. I just asked, I said, we're dealing with this. Maybe something you bring up at your meeting, but I don't know how far into the planning it is, so.
We'll take it back. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us and everyone for speaking. I appreciate y'all so much. Thank you. And we'll send out an email with all of my notes so that you know, so that you get, you know, like a reminder of what we talked about, and then y'all can practice that accountability. So what are you doing about it? So thank y'all so much.
Sorry,
Thank
Karina.
you.
Sorry,
Okay.
everybody. I have a really quick question. If, as people have discovered in various ways that we have this committee, this board advisory, sometimes they have certain questions or things. Should I just send them like to you, Emily, ahead of time, or how do I
bring
do
them.
that if somebody comes to me with?
Yeah, or just bring them. Like
Okay.
bring the questions. Yeah, I mean it's a public meeting. It's not an exclusive group. And yeah, any feedback, I'm hoping that y'all will bring back and share topics that you want to talk about, or you know, like questions or concerns that you have. Like, please just like, because the agenda, like today's agenda was like things that we have talked about and then wanted to get feedback from y'all. If y'all have very specific topics or broad topics that you want to discuss, like please bring it, because it's advisory board,
Okay.
not a yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
we need
Thank
advice.
you. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Okay.
you all.
For doing this.
All
Good to see
right.
you all.
Have a good